In 1975, the average American kid spent 6 hours a day outside. Today, that number is less than 1 hour. And somehow, we're healthier, happier, and a whole lot tougher. Not because life was easy. Life wasn't easy at all. But something about the way we grew up built something inside of us, something strong, something that lasted a lifetime. What was it, and what happened to it? Remember the feeling of leaving the house in the morning and not coming back until the streetlights came on? No phone, no GPS, no way for your mom to find you. Just a bicycle, a few friends, and the whole neighborhood stretching out in front of you like a map of possibilities. We climbed trees that were too tall. We built ramps out of plywood and old bricks. We fell down. We got back up. Sometimes we got stitches. And then we went back outside the next day. Because that world out there, that messy, unorganized, beautiful world, was ours. Nobody scheduled it. Nobody supervised it. Nobody gave us a participation trophy for showing up. We just lived fully, freely, and completely. Here is something nobody tells you about the 1970s. We were bored a lot. Saturday morning cartoons ended at noon. Then nothing. No streaming, no social media, no on-demand anything. And you know what? That was the greatest gift our parents ever gave us, because boredom is where imagination lives. We invented games nobody had ever played before. We turned a cardboard box into a spaceship, a backyard into a whole country. We wrote stories in our heads and acted them out in the alley behind the house. That boredom trained our brains to create something out of nothing. And that skill, that beautiful skill of making something from nothing, that stayed with us for the rest of our lives. We lost games, real games, with real scores and real winners. Nobody changed the rules to make us feel better. You struck out, you missed the shot. Your team lost, and you walked home feeling it. And that feeling, that hollow feeling in your stomach after a tough loss, that was a teacher. It taught you that losing wasn't the end of the world. It taught you that tomorrow you'd practice harder, try a different way, come back stronger. We didn't need a speech about resilience. We lived resilience every single week. And slowly, without even knowing it, we became people who didn't quit, people who knew in their bones that hard times pass. That was our foundation. That was our strength. Dinner in the 1970s wasn't complicated. It was a pork chop, some green beans, a glass of milk, maybe some mashed potatoes. It wasn't fancy, but it was real. Mom cooked it from scratch. You sat down as a family, no screens at the table, just conversation. Dad asked how your day was. You actually answered. And that food, that simple, honest, home-cooked food, gave you real fuel. Not energy drinks, not protein bars wrapped in plastic, see? Just real ingredients that your body knew how to use. And somehow, we had energy all day long. We ran and played and climbed and built and still had enough left over to do it all again tomorrow. That was the fuel of a generation. Simple, clean, powerful. You knew your neighbors, not just their names. You knew their stories, their kids, their dogs, their bad days and good days. Mrs. Henderson, 2 doors down, would call your mom if you were acting up. Mr. Garcia across the street would wave you over to help carry groceries and then give you a quarter. The whole block was watching out for you. Not because it was their job, because that's what people did. There was a safety net made of human beings. And growing up inside that net, it made you brave, because you knew that if you fell, someone would catch you, not an app, not a helpline, a real person who knew your name. That community, that warm, noisy, imperfect community, that was our armor, and we wore it proudly. You wanted a bike, you mowed lawns. You wanted to go to the movies, you raked leaves, you shoveled driveways. There was no shortcut. No parent who just bought it for you because you asked. You had to earn it. And that process of earning, of working and saving and finally getting that thing you wanted, that was a feeling nothing in the world can replicate. You didn't just own a bike. You owned the 75 lawns it took to buy that bike. Every time you rode it, you felt all 75 of them. That pride, that ownership, that connection between effort and reward, that is something you can't teach in a classroom. You have to live it, and we lived it every single summer. We didn't go to the gym. There were no gyms for kids. We went to the creek. We went to the woods behind the subdivision. We caught frogs and built dams and chased fireflies at dusk. We hiked without knowing it was hiking. We swam without it being swim practice. Our bodies were always moving, always engaged. A Saturday could mean 12 miles of running and climbing and carrying, and we'd call it playing. The world was our obstacle course, and our bodies responded. Strong legs, strong backs, strong lungs, not because we tried to be strong, but because we couldn't help it. The life we were living was building us from the inside out. We read not because school required it, because there was nothing else to do on a rainy afternoon. You'd grab a Hardy Boys book, a Nancy Drew, an encyclopedia just to see what was in it, and you disappear for 3 hours. Your imagination would stretch like taffy. You'd visit places you'd never been, meet people who didn't exist, fight battles in your mind. That reading built our attention spans. It built our empathy, our vocabulary, our ability to sit still and think deeply. We could focus. We could hold an idea in our heads and follow it all the way through. That quiet, boring afternoon with a book in your lap, that was training for everything that came later. Every problem we solved, every challenge we faced, that was in there. There was a little league coach who didn't care about winning. He cared about whether you gave your best effort. There was a teacher who stayed late on Tuesdays because she saw something in you. There was a grandfather who took you fishing and didn't say much, but taught you everything. These adults weren't perfect, but they were present. They showed up. They paid attention. They held us accountable with kindness. They believed in us before we believed in ourselves. And that belief, that quiet, steady, unconditional belief, that is the most powerful force in any child's life. We were lucky. We had people like that, and they are the reason we became who we became. Life in the 1970s wasn't all sunshine and bicycles. There were hard years, tight budgets, difficult times. Some families were just scraping by. But here is the beautiful truth about hard times. They make you pay attention to the good ones. When you grew up knowing that things weren't guaranteed, you didn't take them for granted. A good summer day felt like a miracle. A family road trip felt like an adventure. A birthday cake with candles felt like the most important event of the year. We were grateful, not because someone told us to be, but because we could feel the difference between plenty and not enough. And that gratitude, that deep, bone-level gratitude, made every good thing shine twice as bright. By 1974, more than 60% of American men had served in the military or worked a trade with their hands. They came home, built houses, started families, showed their sons how to change a tire in the rain without complaining about it. That knowledge passed from hand to hand, father to son, uncle to nephew, old man next door to the kid who just stood there watching. Nobody wrote it down. Nobody filmed it. It just moved through people, quietly, naturally, the way water finds its way downhill. And here is the fact that stops me every time I think about it. The average American man in 1972 could name every tool in his garage, build a bookshelf, fix a leaky faucet, change his own brakes. Not because he went to a class, because someone stood next to him once and showed him how. That transfer of knowledge, that standing next to someone and watching, that was how an entire civilization moved forward. You were part of that chain. Something was handed to you quietly, without ceremony, and without even realizing it. You became the person who knew how, the person other people called when something broke, the person who showed up with the right tool and didn't need to be asked twice. That is not a small thing. That is the whole story. There is a moment most people remember from childhood. Not a holiday, not a birthday, just a regular afternoon. Maybe a Tuesday. Your dad is in the driveway doing something with the car, or your grandfather is in the backyard fixing a fence post, or your uncle is in the kitchen rewiring a lamp, and you walk over. You don't say anything. You just stand there and watch, and after a minute, they hand you something. A wrench, a nail, a piece of wire, and they say, "Hold this." That's it. Just hold this. But something happened in that moment. You became part of it. You were included, you were trusted, and you never forgot it. Right now, I want you to do one thing. Think of that moment, that exact moment, that person, that Tuesday afternoon. Write it in the comments below, not an essay. Just one sentence. My dad taught me how to, or my grandfather showed me. Because those comments, those real, true memories, become something bigger than this video. They become a record, proof that a whole generation of Americans grew up being handed something real, something worth keeping, something worth passing on. Thank you for watching Vintage America Rewind. We'll see you next time.